Hello, welcome back to the channel. Please subscribe, share and comment. Now, I'm a very big fan of podcasts. I always binge podcasts whenever I'm going to work or whenever I'm on a journey or whenever I'm on a flight heading somewhere, maybe back at home. So there's this new podcast called The Messenger, and it's a documentary podcast about Bobi Wine. So far there are 2 episodes out, and all I can say is wow. Wow. I mean, it's a really nice and well produced podcast. Nothing I've seen, especially that is coming out of Africa. It is hosted by a gentleman or a rapper known as Baz. He's a Sudanese American that lived in France for a while and then moved over to Jamaica and so on and so forth. Then it's also written and produced by a lady known as Dana Ball Out. So I've listened to the first 2 episodes and how they started the story. I liked how they were making comparisons between Bobi Wine and Kanye West, as well as Bobi Wine and Bob Marley, especially in episode 2. In episode 2, they start the story with Bob Marley, whereby during the politics in Jamaica, a situation arose where the 2 competitors who were running for president, they both wanted Bob Marley's endorsement. But Bob Marley could not endorse any of them. So there was an attempt on Bob Marley's life. They wanted to shoot him. Actually, they shot at him. And when they shot at him, I think the bullets got his wife, and maybe his wife died, something of that sort. I don't remember very well. But what was fascinating about that intro was that Bob Marley, the host of the podcast says, maybe at times there is a time where you have to take a side. Because Bob Marley almost lost his life for not taking a side. Because the communists people alleged that the communists wanted to take him out because, he would have been seen as a martyr. The capitalists, the other candidate wanted to take him out because he was actually a threat to them from winning the election. But later on, as they discussed in their podcast, of course, Bob Marley came back when he went back to Jamaica and did his album known as Exodus. He got these 2 candidates together on stage and made them to shake hands together. So they also talk about the story of Kanye West and all this kind of thing. I mean, it's an incredibly well-produced podcast that I've not heard of. I actually had to listen to these 2 episodes twice because the stories were so perfect. I listened to different people. Chairman Nyanzi, Bobi Wine's elder brother, he's there. Nubian Lee is part of the podcast, and I just can't wait. I'm so sad. It's so sad for me that they have only made 8 episodes out of this entire podcast. Anyway, before I delve into my review and also my comments about the entire podcast and why you should listen to it, let us first listen to the preview or the so-called preview or something of that sort, and then we continue with the commentary or my review about the podcast. All right.
Uganda, to anybody that has not been to Africa, I would say Uganda is Wakanda. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people. That's where I was born, and that's where I'm going to be buried.
The voice you're hearing belongs to a man named Bobi Wine. He's Uganda's biggest pop star, one of the most famous men on the African continent. He's also in terrible danger.
I'm supposed to be a dead man because I missed a bullet by just 3 minutes.
People were running from a hotel. Blood was spilling everywhere. He said, "We are under attack."
No. Nothing you're going to do to me! This is The Messenger, a new documentary podcast about one man's struggle to bring freedom to his country, a struggle that may cost him his life.
Uganda for the last 35 years is under the firm grip of a military dictatorship led by General Yoweri Museveni. We have only witnessed corruption, terror, murder. I decided to start using my music to condemn the injustice. However, that was only the beginning.
On January 14th, voters in Uganda will head to the polls to elect a new president. On one side, a dictator, and on the other side,
time has come, friends.
A musician from the slums.
We must get our freedom or we shall die trying.
This guy, he's a fighter, he's a ghetto guy.
People would call out to him, "Ghetto president, your excellency." He was clearly a man of the people from the very beginning.
But with powerful forces united against him, can Bobi win?
It's gonna be war. But if we all went to the streets, they cannot kill all of us.
This is a battle between the past and the future, between slavery and freedom.
Why am I running for president? I want my children to be free.
From Awfully Nice in Dreamville Studios, my name is Bas. This is The Messenger, a Spotify original podcast. Coming January 5th, follow and listen for free, only on Spotify.
All right. So that's the ad intro for the podcast. It's exclusively on Spotify, so you won't find it on Apple Podcast, or you won't find it on whatever, iHeartRadio, whatever, what do you call it? You won't find it on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts and all these other platforms. It's exclusively on Spotify, unfortunately. And I've heard that in Uganda they do not have Spotify. I don't know if other countries like Kenya and our brothers and sisters who are watching from different parts of Africa, I don't know if you guys have Spotify in your countries, but Spotify is one of the, it's a fast growing internet podcast platform where people, make these audio documentaries and so on and so forth. But that's not the point today. But the point is that what does this documentary tell us about Bobi Wine? Why is it very important? Why is it really interesting why should it matter at this stage? First of all, when I was looking at Dreamville Studios, of course it's owned by a gentleman known as J. Cole, and he's a prominent African American musician. And then Baz, the voice you heard, he's a rapper and he's a very big musician, of course, in the United States of America. And the fact that he's the one narrating the story, because I've been going through his Twitter and what he has been tweeting about and picking up the story and things of that sort. Now, it is interesting because now we are seeing that this podcast is kind of penetrating into the African American community, all over the world, and also especially in the United States of America, because Museveni has always been with the argument that Bobi Wine is being financed by Western governments. Bobi Wine is being financed by LGBT people or gay people and all this kind of thing. That Bobi Wine is being financed by colonialists. That is being financed by people who want to take back Uganda back to the colonial era. But then, if you have people like Baz, who is an African American, of which is actually from the Sudanese descent, is Sudanese, just neighbors in the north, then it makes all Museveni's arguments very, very, they are just thrown out of the window. And his son, because the fact that Baz is the one narrating this podcast, he has piqued interest in the story, number one. Secondly, Baz's community, the people that follow his music, the people that follow his work, are all now interested in the story. Now, the other third thing is Dreamville Studio, that is owned by J. Cole and other people, mostly African Americans. This is their first podcast, because they have been working on music and things of that sort. But now this is their first podcast. Now, given that this is their first podcast, of course, they are, making sure that it goes out there to different, different people who are looking for the music. Now they have something to listen to on what is taking place in Africa. And this actually makes a lot of sense, because now if we can get the African American community as well in the US to pick interest in politics and what is going on in Africa, then it can be really, really interesting. Because the problem is that our brothers and sisters in America who are African Americans, at times they do not pay close attention to what is happening in Uganda or what is happening all over the country, especially with these strong men or the big men of Africa. And they cannot understand the plight, they cannot understand the suffering that we people go through. But for them, some of them, this is just a critique, some of them, whenever they listen that, oh, Museveni has said that no to British money, Museveni has said that the white people are bad, Museveni has said that white people this, white people that, Mugabe has said this and that. So for them, they pick that and they are like, okay, oh, this, they're fighting Museveni because he said this and this and that. But they do not know what is actually on ground or what is taking place on ground. Now, podcasts like this one, The Messenger by Dreamville Studios, hosted by a gentleman known as Bass, written by Dana Bolwart, are now going to break those barriers whereby now strong men in Africa are going to be exposed and they are going to be known all over the world. This is a very good initiative, given the fact that it has been written, produced, and being distributed by a reputable company or a reputable studio known as Dreamville. And this is going to be there forever. And everything, there is a lot of evidence to be backed up by this documentary on YouTube, on Facebook, and all this kind of thing. Now, this documentary is so good, the podcast is really good, because now it is going to give a lot of motivation. It's going to uplift a lot of musicians and artists all over the world, especially who are African American or who are, African American or Black Africans living in the different parts of the diaspora where they are minorities, but they would like to run for political office and things of that sort. I like the part where he started in episode 1 talking about Kanye West meeting Donald Trump, and then Kanye West announcing that he is going to run for president under his party known as the Birthday Party. Now that was a very interesting phenomenon because he made that comparison as well as the comparison of Bobi Wine, and that means that to the African American community who are actually following Kanye West, they can easily understand, and contrast, between Kanye West as well as Bobi Wine, and why, Kanye maybe failed a wee bit, and maybe why Bobi Wine is succeeding, and then maybe we could have another musician in America that also comes out, and maybe a much more serious one than Kanye that can run for office. It is gonna happen soon. We know that there are these people like the Ronald Reagans. Of course, he was a movie actor. He ran for office, but he was white. But now you're seeing that Bobi Wine is motivating African Americans to even make a documentary out of him. So, that is what is more Pan-African than that? If he can even motivate these people. For me, I'm happy because some of you might not see the why this is important, especially if you don't listen to podcasts. But if you listen to podcasts, you know what this means. Because no one will listen to a podcast or a boring podcast. For a podcast, you can binge and listen for like 8 hours or 7 hours, depending on the job that you do. So many people now are hooked on this podcast. I've seen lots of reviews on Twitter of people who have so far listened to the podcast. I like the parts, where they were talking about Bobi Wine's life, his upbringing. So for those of you who are watching me from different parts of the world and you don't know Bobi Wine's story, where he comes from and why, the government is so brutal about him, you should go back and listen. If you can, please go and listen. This documentary gives a clear picture on who Bobi Wine is, how he was raised, and all this sort of thing. And they also ask hard-hitting questions, because the next episode that we are waiting for is episode 3, where they will be asking him questions that everyone comes as a savior, then afterwards they turn into dictatorships, they get corrupted by power. How sure will the Ugandan people be that you won't be corrupted? I like this. I'm looking forward to listening to what Bobi Wine has to say about that particular episode, what he has to say in that particular episode. But this is now influencing so many artists, so many musicians all over the world, and I think it is also going to change how people sing their music, especially looking at the Bobi Wine story. Bobi Wine is a gentleman who has had different collabos with people like Buju Banton. He has been to Jamaica. He has met the Prime Minister in Jamaica and all these other people. So you cannot say that Bobi Wine is being supported by colonialists to come and destabilize Museveni and all this kind of thing, because that's really, really bananas. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to anyone who is really sensible enough. But this means that the struggle is now just beginning, that whatever happens, anything that happens, now the world knows. Because the gentleman says that the reason as to why they are making this story known to the rest of the world, it is because Bobi Wine's life is in danger. On January 14th, the people of Uganda, we are going to the polls to vote between a dictator and a musician, or a former musician and a musician. Now, why that is important is because that Museveni has attempted to kill Bobi Wine on several occasions. But the fact remains that for as long as Bobi Wine gets to be known all over the world, all over the country, all over the universe, it is going to be hard for Museveni to murder or execute Bobi Wine. The same thing happened. So many people were executed back in the day. People like Patrice Lumumba, the Belgians and the CIA and all these people, they connived together, and Mobutu connived together and took Lumumba out. But Lumumba, even up to today, we still look up to Lumumba and what he did for the African continent. So this is what these people are looking in, when it comes to Bobi Wine. They are looking at him as a musician, who is beating odds that they thought he would never beat. And the fact that musicians were underlooked in society, and the fact that his life story having grown up from the ghetto is something that should motivate other African Americans that are in the ghetto, that are in different parts of the world, or in different countries where they are minorities, that they can also do it amidst all this oppression and this kind of thing. It is interesting that the writer or the producer and the gentleman who is narrating the whole podcast, they actually draw real life situations between America, the George Floyd protests, the protests, the music in America, and also trying to bring it in a real life situation for the people in America, as well as for the people in America, as well as for the people back home in Uganda, because there is also a very big population of Ugandans living in the United States of America. That is why you see they are throwing in words like Wakanda. Bobi Wine says that Uganda is our Wakanda. Actually, Uganda is Wakanda in Africa in one way or the other, which is really a very interesting thing. But it's I recommend that podcast. It is really well produced, sound quality. I mean, there is a lot of work that has gone into it. When you listen to it, you can really see that there is a lot of work that has gone into it. All Bobi Wine's friends were interviewed. I was also fascinated to have heard that Mr. Moses Sari, Bebe Cool, is also in the podcast there. He was being asked a few questions here and there about the beef and all this kind of thing. And I was also interested, there is a lady that they interviewed, she's I think in episode 2, she has been in Uganda for a very long time and doing research about Ugandan music and things of that sort, and how Ugandan music influences politics and things of that sort, and how the trends are changing here and there. She's been making research. She's made research about the big three as they know them, that is Bebe Cool, Bobi Wine, as well as Chameleon, and so on and so forth. So this is really, really interesting. It's a good documentary. And of course, Bobi Wine, we have seen that he has inspired so many people, so many individuals to go out there and challenge, injustices and challenge impunity and things of that sort. So it is really good that even people in the United States of America are now starting to open, especially in the African American communities, in the taxpayers communities, because what we Ugandans have been crying for is that the American government has been contributing almost $1 billion per year to the Ugandan government, and all that money has been used by the state in order to create injustice, to create violence against opposition supporters, to beat up people, to arrest people, and all this kind of thing. And we have always been appealing to the American taxpayers and telling them that, guys, look here, you have to tell your government to stop giving aid to Museveni, because Museveni is using that aid to kill Ugandans. He's using the aid to beat up Ugandans, because for as long as you are bankrolling him, he is not going to stop. Now, if we can hit, or if Bobi Wine can hit into the African American communities, it means that this story will be, such podcasts will be picked up by Black Lives Matter movements and, different sorts of movements that are fighting for social justice and things of that sort. Because, like Martin Luther said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. We should also know that the African American community, it should really pay attention to politics in Africa and what is going on in Africa. This is their home, this is their Wakanda. I've seen so many African Americans moving from America and heading back to Ghana, which is a good initiative. But you wouldn't love to see an African American coming from America and then heading to Uganda, because it's gonna be worse for them. But you would like them, of course, to come to a Uganda where they can be welcomed, where they can be helped, where they can be, made to feel at home in one way or the other, and where we can create this harmony and camaraderie between, these two different people. So these two completely similar people, but coming from different backgrounds. So the podcast is really something good, given the fact that too many people now are listening to podcasts than they are listening to maybe then they are listening or watching lots of movies and things of that sort. Where this leads is that definitely we are going to see a movie that is going to be done about Bobi Wine. There are so many documentaries out there that have been done by different news agencies, including Al Jazeera, including BBC, DW, France 28, so many out there. But we haven't yet got, that real documentary that traces the life of Bobi Wine, that goes down there to interview. Because even doing such a documentary would be very, very risky. It would be very, very hard, because there's a gentleman known as Moses Bwayo who was trying to do a documentary about Bobi Wine, and he was actually arrested. So it means that right now it is really hard to even go down there and start interviewing people, because these guys will ramp you up and take your equipment, beat you up. You'll even be lucky to leave the country alive. So the other thing is that, of course, we are going to see so many movies about Bobi Wine, because now he is actually inspiring the entire globe. This is very inspirational. This is a movie worth journey, a movie worth story. Now, on the other hand, we also know Museveni tried to make his own movie. Yes, he made his own movie. It's called 27 Guns. It was actually a propaganda movie. Yeah, he made his own movie, 27 Guns. And trust me, no Ugandan has watched it, including me. All I know, taxpayers' money was used to run the movie, to make the movie. It was the most tribalistic movie I've ever seen in the country. Because it is Museveni's daughter that made the movie, and she got her friends and, friends and so on, and then they went and produced the movie. She acted as the wife to Museveni, that is, she played her mother's role, and then there was a man who played Museveni's role. It's a really bad movie, not good at all. As a movie made by a dictator's daughter, it shouldn't be good. The reviews were awful. They premiered the movie good enough. They did not force us to, because they had it run on television, and they made a few couple of CDs, but people never bought the CDs. So it's just out there. No one watching it. Lots of money wasted. So now Bobi Wine is likely to sign a book deal. He's not in this for the money, but this really shows where things are leading. That he will be having a nice or a good book. For me, I told people that Bobi Wine, even if he comes for president for 5 years, or and put a few things back together, rectify our constitution, make sure that you put checks and balances to a president, or those kind of things. Then just go out there and start doing international tours talk to the world, talk to the people, how to take down dictators, talk to different conferences, how to, this is, he can take a Mandela-like footstep, because becoming a president of Uganda, that would be a good thing, of course, but where this is leading is that now the world, after he is president, the world will actually need him very much to go out there and tell him, because this is a big story. People getting arrested, people getting killed, police denying. My God, what a story. That is a movie worth story, a book worth story, a Spotify documentary worth story. So we believe that, of course, there is he will, I don't know, but I think he will work on a book somewhere, and trust me, people will buy that book in plenty, because they know what they will be supporting, they know what they will be buying, because we have all lived the story, we have all seen the story. Now, things like these documentaries, whenever they come out, it really reflects on what life that we people are actually going in, coming out and speaking out, putting our faces on the line. We know what we are going in, we know what it means to be doing all this. So this is really good. Museveni has his own book, as well as the wife. He has 2 copies of the Mustard Seed and so on and so forth. But of course, no one is buying that book. But of course, now we are looking forward to Bobi Wine's movie, the book, and so many other things that are bound to come over. But I think now the world needs Bobi Wine, especially the musicians, especially the artists, and so on and so forth. Africa needs Bobi Wine, because if things work out like we think are going to work out on January 14th, I really believe that is going to be a very big influence on the continent of Africa, and we are going to see so many people rising up, and we are going to see a very big change, especially on how the African American communities pay attention to African countries and African leaderships. And these brothers and sisters in different parts of the world, in Britain, in Europe and America, they shouldn't be looking at African strong men just because they have said something about a white person, because that's what they know. They know that, okay, if you abuse white people, then people will come to your support. They will say that, okay, now Museveni has rubbished white people. And then you forget that Museveni is actually rubbishing white people, but he is killing fellow black people. He is killing us. Bobi Wine has missed, they throw a grenade at his house 3 times. So people in Europe and the US and the UK, whenever they see Museveni or when they see these dictators saying, oh, you white people, don't tell me about your human rights, don't tell me about this, don't tell me about that. Yes, that is true. Don't tell me this, don't tell me that. But what about killing your own people? Your fellow black people? What about killing them? Just because they have said or they have called you out on your atrocities? Does that warrant these people to die? That is not fair. So our brothers and sisters in different parts of America, please, you should start paying attention, because we want to create a continent, or we want to create an Africa whereby if George Floyd is killed, or whereby if Breonna Taylor is killed, or Amadou Aubrey is killed, we want to be able, as an African continent or as an African countries or African presidents, we want to be able to stand in unison and condemn the brutality or mistreatment of African people in these countries, and we want to be able to provide, some sort of arrangement where people who want to come from Europe and want to come from America to come back to Africa, to come back to Uganda, they can get citizenship, and maybe these people they can start from there and say that, okay, from now on, this is where I'm going to start my family, and I will always tell my children that, look here, I came back in Africa, and we can give you African names, we can give you African lineages, we can give you African tribes and things of that sort, so that you reclaim your identity. But if you have these so-called dictators who are after money, after aid and all these kind of things, they cannot put out all those incentives, because they know if they put out those incentives, you will stand up to them and you will hold them accountable, and they will lose their power, they will lose their money. They do not want many people in their countries. That is why you see in Uganda there is a lot of brain drain. Lots of our lots of our experts, kids who have studied law, who have studied medicine and all this kind of thing, are being exported off and taken to Arab countries to become maids and things of that sort, and most of them are being killed there. So Museveni doesn't want these kids in the country, he's chasing them out. On the other hand, he's bringing Cuban doctors in, and yet we have our own doctors. So our brothers and sisters in America, so if you're fighting, you should fight for the rights of African people on what the American government is doing. American government is sending aid to these people. Museveni was given $1 billion last year. So you guys should pay attention to that. And that money was used to kill his citizens. Over 64 people were killed on November 18th and 19th. Just last week, we buried one of Bobi Wine's bodyguards, private bodyguards, known as Frank Senteza. He was knocked by Museveni's military vehicle. The same military vehicles that are financed by the US government and the European Union and all these other countries. A couple of days back, Bobi Wine went to campaign in one of the islands in Kampala. In one of the islands in Uganda known as Kalangala, and all his campaign entourage was arrested. All of them, they were taken. Bobi Wine was airlifted from the island and taken back to his home. Just imagine a situation where Barack Obama is going to campaign, maybe somewhere in Missouri or wherever, and then the sitting president, or if George W. Bush comes and arrests Obama with all his entourage, with all his PA, public address system and everything, and then they airlift Obama and take him back to his home state. That's what happens in Uganda. That's what they did to Bobi Wine. I think there were around 126 people were arrested by the junta, by the dictator, and thrown in jail. For 3 days now, for over 2 weeks now, all these people have not been given their freedom. And for Bobi Wine, it was just a mechanism that these people used for him to stop making any sort of campaigns. He can no longer campaign now. They took away his public address system. They took away his car. He no longer has anything. And then they expect him to run is running for an election, of which people have showed that they are going to vote for him regardless. But that is what we are going through. So whenever you are embracing these so-called strong leaders in Africa, you should know that Africa is a completely different thing that we, the people living here, are going through. Just like our brothers and sisters in these countries, the racism and all this kind of thing they are going through. Because we cannot come out and just say, African Americans this and this, or British Africans this and this and that, because we don't know, we do not live there. But we can always stand with the people when you see there is an injustice. If I see that George Floyd is being killed, the images were really terrible. But what did the African governments do? Nothing, completely nothing. These are the people we have in Africa. Bobi Wine even stood and, he knelt and said Black Lives Matter and all this kind of thing, George Floyd and all this kind of thing. Bobi Wine did it, But all these African leaders, they're after money. They're after money. For as long as they get the aid, that's all they care about, unfortunately. And in that category, Museveni is their leader. People like the Ngemas, the dictators, and all these people. It is absolutely, really, really, really terrible. That is why we need to make sure that we all stand up in unison. The African Americans in different parts of the world, or British Americans, or Africans in different parts of the world, the black people, they have to support and sponsor revolution movements that are there to take out these so-called autocrats and dictators, the strong men of Africa. Because if we do not do that, then the future is not going to be bright for our children and our great-grandchildren. We are all going to suffer the same, and it's just going to be the same loop over and over again. So this podcast, I would say that everyone please try out and listen to it. I think if you cannot listen to it, try and get it. Try and get a VPN, download Spotify, and see if you can get it. If you can't, then especially for those of you who are in Africa, then I think I don't know, but I think if you try a VPN, maybe you could get it. You never know. But it's really nice podcast. It's so good. It's really, 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 it's really good. I don't know, but it's really good because I had to listen to the episodes twice, the 2 episodes, just like you heard from the promo video. Alright guys, thank you very much. This was my comment on the podcast. This was my sort of a review on the podcast. I'll be coming up with more content, but please go and watch that document. Go and listen to that documentary. You can just tune it on your radio, in your car, or if you're in a flight, or if you're on a train somewhere. It's really good to listen to, and trust me, it gives you a different image on who Bobi Wine is. You will see all the blackmail that the government has put on him, the so-called that he's being gay, that he is a drug dealer, he's a drug addict, and all these kind of things. When you listen to Bobi Wine himself, you will see it's completely different person, and all the things that they allege or they blackmail about him, they're just nothing but just blackmail, which is really interesting. Alright guys, have a great day. Subscribe to the channel, comment, and bye bye.